Cool.
All right, so this is Owen from Steelhead Entertainment. I'm here with some of the dudes from Lies Beneath. We're going to talk about the new album you guys have coming out soon and just your experiences in New York City playing music. So first off, if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
My name is Nick. I sing.
I'm Ben. I play guitar and backups.
And I'm Spencer. I do bass and backup vocals.
Excellent. All right. So I'm happy to have you guys here. My first video interview for this site. Excited for it.
Honored.
You're
Sweet.
popping my cherry.
Hot.
So I guess first off, fundamentally, if you each want to take a shot at your elevator pitch for the band, like say you had 30 seconds or a minute just to tell somebody what Lies Beneath is about, describe the sound, what would you say to sum it up real nice and succinctly for someone? Anyone wanna go first?
Well, I mean, if I was just taken off guard on the spot and I had to tell somebody who never heard us before, I'd say it's kind of a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I mean, there's a little bit of every aspect of metal in there. I mean, it's heavy, but we do a lot of melodic stuff too, so it's kind of well-rounded, and a lot of groove-based stuff. This is a really terrible elevator pitch. But, hopefully the elevator would get stuck and I'd have an extra minute or so to, to elaborate a little bit better than that.
All right, you guys want to one-up him on that? You got a better description?
I hope so.
I'd say there's a lot of grooves, a lot of breakdowns. I mean, we try to do it tastefully.
Yeah.
There's a good mix of, every style of music in there and elements of everything. We try to span the whole frame, as it were.
Yeah.
You know?
And I would have to agree with these guys, but if anything I've had to add, I'd say it's very hard to compare us to many other bands, which is probably a very good thing these days because I find it very easy to compare one band to another, like with a drop of the hat.
Yeah.
And we're very focused and performance driven, so with those combinations, it's usually a pretty good mix.
Metal for the eclectic listener is
Yeah.
maybe a good one.
I liked your comment about being performance-driven because the only time I've seen you guys live is actually when we played a show with you guys at Crash Mansion with Demolitia, and I thought your live show was like really powerful, phenomenal, like on point, and just like fit so well with the music. You really brought it across like really strong.
That was a Halloween show, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah, so you got a good one.
The President's,
Yeah,
yeah,
we kinda had it.
that was also a cool get up with the band with all the President's masks and everything. Yeah.
Obviously, there was a little bit, there was a little more of an extra effort there than there are at all the other shows we play, just because it was Halloween weekend and everything. So it was probably a good first impression as far as that goes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. Ben, you were saying I'm gonna give you a question that kind of goes against just how you were saying. Maybe you guys are doing something further away from what's out there. I'm gonna ask you what your influences are. So, what are you guys all drawing from individually, and how do you think it comes into the band in terms of influencing this, like your sound?
I'd say, speaking on behalf of me and I guess our drummer as well, who isn't here right now, a lot of the influence comes from Tool, Alice in Chainsy stuff. A lot of more spaced out, intricate stuff at the same time as staying true to our metal roots and trying to make things as driven and heavy as possible. It's just not always all going to be about being heavy. It's going to be about keeping the listener entertained and interested. So
Yeah.
that's
And my end, I would have to say I started off with real big inspiration from all the bands like Metallica, Pantera, Slayer, and as time went on, I started widening my listening and everything. I branched onto bands more like, say, Whitechapel, Dillinger Escape Plan, Lamb of God, stuff like that, and just kind of try and put my own spin on it.
For me, I guess it depends on which aspect of it we're talking about. Performance-wise, I've always been a fan of guys that not only can pull off the frontman thing, but kind of have their identity like within, the rank of the musicians in the band, and not just, really do stuff that's like completely independent. Mike Patton's a big influence, just because he's so heavily musically involved in everything. Like, he really pulls it off as the frontman of any of the million projects he's in, but You could tell that he has like a really heavy hand in just the way the whole attitude of all the compositions are shaped. And so I guess I would have to name him as like a big influence, just like performance wise and musically, you know, as well as just like the versatility of his style too.
Yeah. It's cool that you bring that up. I mean, one of the things that really struck me about you guys, and also with Resolution 15, is just your vocal approach to stuff. Like, I feel like, you know, there's still singers out there in metal that can sing and scream, but you tend to hear it as the soft and then the hard bark and things like that. Whereas, I feel like every time I've seen you go up there with either band, you just have like a very fluid approach about how you do it. And I would say Mike Patton's a singer that I think approaches his vocal style pretty similarly.
He does in a lot of ways, but I mean, you know, he obviously can do. He's pretty. He's not really limited. I mean, I'm obviously a lot more limited of a performer and a singer, but you know, everyone needs something to aspire to. Like anyone who's better than me is gonna, you know, motivate me to be better. But I mean, everyone's got their own thing. Like for some guys, a certain style works, and for some of them, like the really sharp dichotomy, you know, from one extreme to the next, you know, that's their method of dynamic, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that if it's fitting for the music. Like a lot of the stuff that I grew up on was a lot more soulful, a lot more rock and roll, a lot more old school R&B, like the beginnings of classic rock and stuff like that. And that's when people were really starting to figure out how to make things sound a little more heavier and a little more experimental, and just, you know, there was a lot more of like a fluid transition between stuff because there wasn't really that need for such like a harsh dynamic all the time,
Right.
you know. But hopefully we'll, you know, get to writing stuff that maybe would call for that kind of style because, you know, it's just,
You're open to it.
yeah, we want to be able to mix it up. So I mean, if it's right, we'll do it for
Yeah,
sure.
our writing style is all about dynamics and the transition from lack thereof to way too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I guess Ben, this would be more focused towards you. Like I was just going through your MySpace, and you guys did a really good job of kind of detailing the actual process of the band forming and the lineups and everything you went through in terms of how it started out and where you got to now. And I know so many musicians that when they're trying to start a project off, they can get so discouraged by not having a member or having somebody leave. Like it can slow it down. I mean, with more detail, like what were your experiences really trying to get this band going, and like did you ever feel discouraged going through all these lineup changes or anything like that?
Well, I mean, every time we had to make a change, it was always discouraging at the moment. The only thing we were able to do, and we had to keep reminding each other, like I'm talking in regards to Jared and I, and also Andrew was there pretty much from the beginning. We just had to keep reminding ourselves, like, we're doing it for a reason. If we didn't care and like we were fine with how poorly we were performing or presenting what we wanted to be able to present, then we wouldn't be kicking these people out in the first place or giving them the option to move on or improve themselves. And every time we were able to remind ourselves of that, our attitude just kind of rose to like a different level, and we kind of brought that into our writing, and that, you know, inspired other people to want to be involved. So every time we got someone new, it seemed to be a pretty good result of everything. Yeah. So that was always a big influence, and you know, it helped us stay you know, encouraged about the whole thing about losing a band member, not because you do it for a reason, and hopefully you get like much more improvement.
Yeah. How did I mean, just going through all that with the band members, has it changed the writing process for the music of the band a lot, or is there anything noticeably different?
I would have to say yes for the most part. For example, before Andrew joined the band, we were like right in the beginning of the process of like forming the band. So I mean, we were dabbling with a couple of different drummers, nothing too serious. But when he came in, it made the writing process like a lot more clear on like how we wanted to go, instead of like trying to like find our sound. Like it helped narrow it down a lot. And then later Nick joined the band, and that really continued to help narrow down where we wanted to find ourselves. And now Spencer is the most recent addition to the band, and he's done a lot for mostly the performance of the song and everything, because a lot of the songs were written prior to him joining the band. But even though we haven't released this new one, we are constantly like throwing back ideas just to, like, keep our gears moving. And the stuff he's been coming up with lately is really like starting to change the direction of where we're moving in like a positive direction.
Yeah.
Our sound definitely solidified after that happened too. I mean, once you find a good drummer bass player combination, and
It locked in immediately.
yeah, it kind of sets the tone.
So you guys feel like it's a real collaborative process with writing? I mean, I've known some bands where it might be like one or two guys that kind of dictate things really strongly, and then people throw their touches in. I mean, what would you guys say is the dynamic right now with the band in terms of writing?
I'd say for this most recent album, a lot of the writing fell on Ben and Jared. For our current process we're working with now, I mean, each song kind of has one person who's at the forefront of the writing, and I mean, we're a 5-piece band, and everyone has a voice and everyone has a say, and it really shapes an idea into a song, or a skeleton into a complete
Fleshes it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's going to collaborate. You know, like
Yeah.
nobody's signing off on anything without their stamp of approval, or just putting their own little spin on part of it. It's even if one person has the core idea and really wants to see a specific vision all the way through. I mean, it's always going to have a little bit of everybody's influence on it. One way or the other. So.